favorite books that I have read. And so these are, well, I shouldn't say favorite. These are just some of the 8 of the most impactful books on my financial life. Let's say it that way. And so, yeah, we're going to kind of go through these. I have them all right. Not all of them. I have most of them right here. And, yeah, I'm kind of excited to share these because I'm going to share a little bit of what I learned in each one of them, like as quickly as possible, since we're talking about 8 of them here. And I don't have all of the books anymore. I've gotten rid of some of them. I'm a little bit of a minimalist, like we talked about 2 nights ago. And I get rid of a lot of books. I keep a few books based on whether or not I think I'm going to come back to them, which is not necessarily the same as whether or not they were massively impactful in my life. So they're 2 different things. Some books are just a little bit more resource driven and kind of make a little bit more sense to just continue to have on your shelf, whereas other ones can really impact my life, but they don't, they're not necessarily books I'm going to come back to, if that makes any kind of sense. So, yeah, over the last probably decade, I'm estimating about 350 to 400 books I've read. And, I've read some great ones and some bad ones in there. And these are, like I said, my top 8 kind of financial books that have had a massive impact on my life. And then after those, I'm going to share, I think, 4 or 5 other ones that aren't financial, but that have big impact on my life as well. And a lot of you have been asking about books, certain books that I've mentioned or read or whatever. So we'll talk about all that now. All the links to these will be down in the description. So if you want to check them out, they'll be down there. And as we're going through this, leave a comment if you've read the book. And if you agree or disagree, or you think it's terrible or great or whatever else, just leave a comment and let me know. All right, so I don't have the first one. I'm going to work backwards from number 8 down to number 1. We'll kind of go that way, just in terms of, and this isn't, I have to say this isn't like the order of the best book. It's just what's been most impactful for me. So part of that is the timing of it, because some of these things, like when you read the book or when you learn the thing, is really important. And so if you learn at a different date, it may not be as impactful. But anyway, all that to say, book number 8 is The Millionaire Next Door. And this book, what was particularly interesting about this book to me is it proved me wrong that I always believed growing up that a millionaire was someone who is what you see in like one of the rap videos where gold chains, diamonds everywhere, just spending money like it's going out of style. And that's what a millionaire is. And in reality, this book illustrates and proves that most millionaires aren't like that at all. And most of them fly under the radar and you honestly wouldn't even know. So they operate a lot more like Sam Walton did, where he drove a 15-year-old truck and just was very, just not pretentious. You just never would have known just by looking at him that he was actually extremely wealthy. And this book just kind of proved that point and illustrated a lot of the habits of really wealthy people and how they think. And so this book really impacted me a lot. I really liked it a lot. All right, book number 7 is actually written by a friend of mine who I actually was talking to today, and it's this book, and it's called Atomic Habits. And it's written by James Clear, and he is one of the most disciplined and regimented, in a good way, thoughtful, like strategic people I've ever met in my entire life. Like incredibly bright, incredibly smart, and he spent many years on this book. And the book is laid out really well, and it's just a system to break bad habits and to create good habits. And it's incredibly well written, and it's just really, really helpful. I really enjoyed this book a whole lot. It's been really, really good. All right, number 6. And so, let me say that. So this isn't specifically a financial book. So this one kind of breaks my rule a little bit. So it's not specifically financial, but a lot of these things apply to your finances. And so you can take financial lessons from this, even though he's not specifically talking about finances in many of the instances. All right, number 6. This one is, I lost the cover, or I took it off because I actually don't like dust covers a whole lot. It's called Money, Master the Game. And this one is by Tony Robbins. And which is kind of funny because Tony is, I'm sure you know of Tony Robbins. I mean, he doesn't call himself a motivational speaker. He's more of a performance coach or something like that. And there's actually been a lot of Tony Robbins content that has been really helpful in my life. And I'm always a little bit guarded with it. I mean, some things that I don't agree with how he does things. But he's done a lot of things. Anyway, point is with this book, it's specifically about money. And he had basically what he did because of his position and all the people he's in contact with, he went and talked to basically the brightest financial minds in the world and pressed them for answers on how normal people can win with money. And there's a lot of like investing strategies in here, like for saving for retirement and things like that, where he breaks it down to the actual fund that you should get. There's a lot of really smart and detailed stuff in here that I found really useful. It's a really big book, but it was a fairly easy read and just a surprisingly good book coming from someone who's not a financial writer about money. I honestly went into it reading it thinking that I'm not going to like this and that he's not going to have much value to add, because he himself admittedly in the book says, like, this isn't my wheelhouse, but I went and found the people who are the best at what they do, and that's where we got all this information. So, all right, number 5 on the list is Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. And what I liked about this book, I read this book probably, maybe 15 years ago. I think this is second edition or maybe third, I don't know. And this book I particularly found helpful because I had read a handful of books before this book, but this book is really simple and really easy to understand. And it's part of the criticism that the book gets is because some people say it oversimplifies some things. But what I liked about it was the first time in my life after reading so many books and realizing, all right, I know I should start saving for retirement. I know I should start saving some money. It actually got me to do it because he just helped me to understand that the simplicity of just starting to make savings automatic and the importance and the significance of just making it automatic, removing it from your requiring your willpower. And so it was just a good book. Yeah, a good book, particularly for saving for retirement and just getting a little bit of motivation and inspiration to do that and to do it automatically. All right, so that's number 5. Number 4. All right, so this is an investing book do I have it? Oh, shoot, I don't have it. Yeah, I guess I don't have this one anymore. So this is an investing book. I was telling somebody about this the other day. So this is specifically about investing in stocks. It's called One Up on Wall Street. It's by Peter Lynch. And a pretty old book, probably 25 years old at this point. And I like this book because I like the way he picks stocks. Similar to Warren Buffett, I mean, not exact strategies, but similar in that it's buying a company that you believe in, that you think has long-term potential. You're not buying a company, you're not buying a stock like a day trader that you're going to be trading in whatever tomorrow or whatever else. You're buying it for the long term, which is how I roll. That's how I've had the most success with any of my stocks that I've bought over the years. It's been buying them for long term. Like we bought Amazon at like $150 or something. It's now worth, I don't know what it is right now, but somewhere around 2,000. Like we've had over a 10x return on that. And we've had a couple other big wins in a couple of stocks, but that didn't come from me just trading back and forth all day. It came from me holding it for a decade and picking a company that I believed in, that I actually knew something about. And that's part of what's great about this book. I wish I could hold it. Is that he talks about what is your competitive advantage? What is the area that you know something about that not everybody does? And if you can lean into that and look for stocks in that arena, you are going to have an advantage oftentimes over some of the guys who get paid to pick stocks. And so he gives an example of, and this is back in the 80s, his wife came home with one of those, I don't remember what these things are called. I think they're called legs, like a plastic egg container that had women's pantyhose in or something. Like, if you remember this, you can throw a comment over and let me know. But those things are something. So she brought one of these home and he was asking her about it. It's like, tell me about that. And anyway, she loved them and she was telling him all about it and all of her friends were using them and whatever. And he's like, huh, interesting. And so then he started doing some more research, ended up investing in the company and just made a ton of money. And he credited his wife, for that kind of that stock tip, and she wasn't giving him a stock tip. She was talking about the company and what the company, how great they were, and all this stuff. And point is that you want to be looking for where your competitive advantage is. What are the things that you know something about? Maybe about a hobby that you have that you know really well. Maybe it's about what your career is that you have some knowledge of that a lot of other people wouldn't. Things like that. So, great book to kind of learn about I think, one of my favorite ways to invest in stocks, that strategy. All right. Number 3 on the list is this little book called The Treasure Principle. It's by Randy Alcorn. And so this is a book about giving and generosity biblically. And what I particularly love about this is, I'm writing a book on giving right now. And I'm going to be referencing this book because he has some really great illustrations in here. And one of the things that he is talking about in here that I love, he so well highlights the eternal perspective of our giving. Because I think so many of us think that when we give something away that we're losing it, that it's the same as just burning the cash or whatever the thing is. And he does a great job of proving the point and just reminding the reader that when you give, this is eternal. And we are, we're just on this earth for a short time. Like, we are just visitors here passing through, but we are eternal beings, and you're contributing to something that's so much bigger. And there's eternal rewards here. And anyway, he solidifies that point really, really well. And I just like the book a lot. All right, number 2 on the list. And this one I don't have either. And I don't know why I don't have this book. I was planning on keeping this one. Anyway, this one is called Your Money or Your Life. And this book is great because it talks a lot about the psychology of thinking about money. One of the exercises in this book was that this idea of calculating your real hourly wage. And as an employee, this was mind-blowing to me because I was working at a company where there were a lot of requirements for me. So a lot of like dress code requirements. I had to drive a long way. So that was gas, wear and tear in a car. I had a boss for many years who was just off the rails like crazy about being 1 minute late for work. Like literally, if you were 1 minute late for work 3 times, like she would fire you. Just like cuckoo, a little bit too far. And so like I had to have a car that was going to get me there on time because like I might lose my job if I had a car that broke down every once in a while. So like that added to the expense. All the drive time, like all these things. Anyway, point is you add up all this extra stuff and then you calculate what your real hourly wage is, and it ends up being way less than what you're actually getting paid on your paycheck because of all these additional expenses. And so what that does is it allows you to make more strategic decisions. And so for a lot of spouses who they aren't earning as much as their other spouse, it might make more financial sense for them to stay home once you do this exercise. So that's just one example. There's all kinds of things like that where they help you to think through kind of some of the, I don't know what that would even be, but just thinking through money through a different lens. And it was really helpful for me, really, really helpful. All right, number 1 on the list. And I honestly don't like saying that this was the most impactful book on my list, but it just was. And it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And there's a lot I don't agree with in this book. I don't love a lot of Robert Kiyosaki's approach. There's a lot I don't agree with. But the reality is that this was a book that hit me at a turning point in my life and just radically changed how I thought about money and just broke off a lot of small-minded mindsets that I was holding on to. And yeah, like just some really simple things. So like one of my favorite things from this book was just how he broke down thinking about every purchase that you make as either everything that you spend money on is either an asset in terms of it putting more money in your pocket, or it's a liability in terms of it taking money out of your pocket. And there's some gray area in between, but in general, there's a spectrum here where everything you spend money on is either going to take money out of your pocket or put money in your pocket. So if you buy whatever, a stock, or you buy a piece of real estate, a rental property, like that is something that is putting money in your pocket. On the other hand, if you go out to dinner or if you buy a shirt or something like that, that pretty much is money going directly out of your pocket that is going to be of no value in the future. And so what this did is it forced me to like start thinking about every time I'm spending money, like what category is it going in? And then the middle ground is things that maybe aren't completely assets, but are like, how do you reduce them from being complete liabilities? So for example, with certain clothes, like I would start buying things that might hold their value a little bit. Or if I was going to buy a car, I wouldn't buy a new car because it's going to lose a whole lot more money on depreciation. So I would buy a car that's 4 or 5 years old. And so that I'm losing less on that. So it's less of a liability. So it's taking less money out of my pocket. And so it really, like that one lesson alone from this book, like just transformed how I think about money. And there's a lot of other good lessons in here as well. But like I said, it's a book that I wish I could say something else was more impactful. But that's it. And then I will throw in book number 0. I'll call this 0 or 1 plus or whatever. This is the book of Proverbs, and this is the Alabaster version. And I'm not necessarily, the version doesn't matter, but the point is the book of Proverbs has impacted, and I'm doing this 0 as in better than 1. I don't know. Anyway, but the Proverbs has impacted my financial life. Probably more than anything else. It's obviously eternal wisdom. And there's just so much in the book of Proverbs that talks about money. Ecclesiastes has some as well. There's just a lot of really deep wisdom. And I spent many years of my life reading a proverb every single day. It's a great exercise if you just want to be wiser. That's simple. And and it's just been great. And I love this for what it's worth. This is a company called Alabaster who makes these really beautiful Bibles. And so this is just the book of Proverbs here. So anyway, all right. So those are my top 8, technically 9 financial books. So I think I'm going to share, I'll share, let me see if there's any questions worth getting to. Yeah. All right. So, all right. So Debbie remembers the legs. That's awesome. All right, great. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and share some of these other books real quick, and then we can, if anybody has any questions about anything, we can talk about that. All right. One kind of honorable mention. I don't know where that is. I have it laying around somewhere. Another friend of mine wrote this book. What is it called? His name's Noah Kagan. He's my Jew friend. He's my Jewish friend. And this book's called Things the Rich Don't Want You to Know. And he's a very, he's a really interesting guy, just super casual, super fun. And this book just communicates it very well. It's not at all a very, I don't know how to say this, but it's not a very polished or refined book. It's very much feels like he's just sitting in a living room having a conversation with you. But this book is specifically for people who have kind of crossed that $100,000 a year income level and are just trying to find next level ways to kind of use tax strategy, and a whole bunch of other things, like much more advanced financial moves that aren't really relevant until you start making a higher income. And it's just full of some really good ideas. And so that's kind of honorable mention for the list. All right, so let's talk about 4 non-financial books that have kind of been life-changing for me. So number 1 on this list is a book called When Helping Hurts. And this book, along with, there's a documentary on Netflix you can check out. It's called Poverty Inc., is an INC, like incorporated. And both this documentary and this book illustrate, this was absolutely eye-opening to me and just saddened me and scared me and whatever else, but illustrate how so many charities, probably well-meaning charities, are actually harming a lot of societies and without even knowing it, or maybe some of them do know it, but they just have to keep going because that's what they do. And so a typical example might be, and I think this was in the documentary, I'm trying to remember where this was. Maybe in, I don't really know. Anyway, so after like a natural disaster strikes or something, so all these charities will come in and whatever, provide shoes for people, provide food, whatever, and they're just giving all this stuff out. And that's helpful in the time of crisis, but when they're there 2 or 3 years later, just still giving stuff out because people are giving that to them and they just have to keep giving it out. What that kind of does in many situations is actually destroy the local economy. And so, for example, like they were talking about, I think it was a shoemaker or something, and this might have been Tom's shoes, like giving all these shoes away, whatever, but he couldn't run his business because no one would buy shoes from him. This is a local guy who lived in town and he made shoes, but no one would buy shoes from him because everybody was getting shoes for free. And, it's just one example, but that just multiplied over the entire economy over the course of years. Like it drives everybody, all the local businesses out of business. And so that economy can't sustain and it can't build itself back up because no one's actually making money and everybody's just taking what's being given to them. And anyway, and I'm sure there's lots of controversy around this and what's the right way to do it. And it's really difficult. And honestly, the book left me with more questions than answers. But it's something that I think, like for Linda and I, this is something really important. We want to give away a lot of money in our lifetime. And if you fall into that category, and if you are giving to any charitable organization or any kind of, mission-based thing like this is something that we need to be aware of. And we need to pay attention to how can we make sure that the money we're using, because I guess my point is that it's easy to be an American insulated from the stuff and to give money and to feel good about, oh, I gave money, I feel good now, and to take that feel good feeling and just rest on our laurels when the reality is that I don't know, I think there might be a little bit of, there's an opportunity for us to kind of learn a little bit more about what's actually happening and to make better, wiser stewardship decisions as a result. So anyway, that book was really eye-opening to me. Next on this list is a book called 4-Hour Workweek, which you've probably heard of 1,000 times. And again, it's another one that I wish, I don't know. It's just so overdone and whatever that I wish it hadn't been such a life-changing book. But the reality is I read this book in 2008 or 9 when I was starting my business. And and it was pretty revolutionary at the time. And it just really helped me. It helped me structure my business in a way that I didn't become a slave to it. And I intentionally built a business that had passive components to it that allowed me to build a business that fit our lifestyle and what we wanted to do. So for example, being able to take a 1-month sabbatical every single year because of what we learned in this book, we were able to do that. And so it just had a big impact on me. And I don't know if I think Tim updated it actually, and I'm curious to see how relevant it still is now, but yeah, it just had a big impact on me. All right, another book, No Dust Sleeve, because I don't like them. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday is a great writer, and he typically writes about stoicism, like kind of modern day stoicism, and that's exactly what this book is. And I always had like a negative impression of stoicism, and I still don't love everything about stoicism, but I've actually been surprised that there's a lot of components of stoicism that actually are biblical to me, from my vantage point. Not everything, but more than I would have thought. And so this book is kind of about how you handle challenges and how you deal with them and how to deal with them better. And and so anyway, it is a great book, a great read, and really, and again, the timeliness of when it hit me, when I really needed it, like going through some really big struggles, made it really helpful. All right, and then last book, this one I don't have because I listened to it on Audible. Got the audiobook version of it, and this one I listened to probably 4 or 5 months ago. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And great book about the importance of slowing down, the importance of focusing on what's important. And John Mark Comer, I think is his name. And he just touched on a lot of really important things in this book. So I'm trying to think what else to say about it. I just really enjoyed it. Linda really enjoyed it. She started reading it a couple months or listening to it a couple months ago and literally just finished it, I think, a couple weeks ago. And she loved it as well, which that says something when she loves it. When she and I love the same book, that's saying something. All right. So I want to hear from you. So now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments what books I've missed. And like I said, the links to all of these and all the names, everything will be in the description. So you can check that out if you're on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram. You're going to have to go over to YouTube or Facebook to find those. But yeah, comment. Let me know what you think. Like what books have like made a big impact on you. And they can be financial or otherwise. But I'd love to hear from you. And all right, so Gary's asking, how can we give help without hindering? And this I don't have this exact answer other than talking to the actual organizations that you're giving and asking them. Honestly, I would ask them some difficult questions. Like ask them that. Like, what are you guys doing in your organization to make sure that you're not actually hurting the local economy, you know, where this money is going, where this rice is going or supplies or whatever the thing may be. And see if they have a plan, see if they have thought about that, see what they're doing. I know Tom's Shoes specifically has made some changes kind of over the last few years as a result of a lot of this stuff. Like, because I think they realized that, you know, when they go and drop whatever 50,000 pairs of shoes in a community, that isn't always helping everybody, you know. And and these are just really tough and tricky problems to solve that honestly that I don't know that there are always just blanket answers to. But I believe that I don't know. I just want to take responsibility for my giving and not just end it at once it goes out of my hand. But to just be a little bit more thoughtful about it. And so that's kind of where we are with it. I'll just leave it at that. All right. Yeah, so Debbie says she read When Helping Hurts and took a class at a church based on the book. Yeah, very eye-opening. Rob says Proverbs are great, or is great. Sure is. Rob said he wished he had enough money to buy a stock. You can, brother. There's plenty of stocks you can afford, and especially if you use M1. That's one of my favorite places to invest because you can buy fractional shares. So you can buy yourself, Rob. You can buy yourself $5 of Apple stock if you want. You can do it over there. All right. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Why am I not hearing any books? I know some of you guys have to read something. I need some books in here. What else should I be reading? What should I add to my list here? So let me know in the comments. Or you can give me great Netflix shows or Netflix documentaries. I'm cool with that too. But I'd love to hear from you. Let's see if Instagram. Anybody on Instagram? Any questions over here? What was the name of that book? Oh, man. I'll go through all the books. How about that? I'll just do that real quick. And then if you don't, you'll hopefully remember one of them. All right, so going through the top 8 real quick. Millionaire Next Door, Atomic Habits, Money Master of the Game, Automatic Millionaire, One Up on Wall Street, The Treasure Principle, Your Money or Your Life, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the Book of Proverbs, some of the non-financial books, When Helping Hurts, 4-Hour Work Week, The Obstacle is the Way, and The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. So, all right, Pound Foolish by Olin was interesting. All right, great. Sabbatical, highly recommend. So is it literally, the title is just called Sabbatical? And Slowing Down, recommend to read Sacred Slow, 40 Days of Decrease. Cool. Interesting. Richest Man in Babylon. I did read that one years ago. I remember that. Great. I will check those out. Lourdes or Lourdes. I forget. I think Linda said you were telling her how to pronounce it yesterday. But anyway, all right. So keep the comments coming. I'm going to sign off for now. But yeah, we will. I want to see your books. I want to keep building my list. I have a lot of books I want to read this year, and I want more. So, all right, hook me up. All right, everybody have a great evening, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Adios.